We talk weeklies after the talk on WPP MLP Philadelphia 106.5 FM. We talk weeklies after the talk with your boy Charles Gregory and the beautiful
Lauren Sizzle.
and the beautiful
Classy Lady
All
Sparkle.
right, so as I can't wait, why don't you let us know who do we have today?
Today we have Kadida Kenner is the founding CEO of the new PA Project Education Fund and the new Pennsylvania Project advocating for social and economic justice. She has led efforts to stop judicial gerrymandering, raise the minimum wage, and protect court independence. Kadida also co-chairs Why Courts Matter Pennsylvania and focusing on judicial independence and voter education, and so much more. Y'all already know what to do. Let's give a warm We Talk Weekly welcome to Kadida Kenner.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. I told you, you're a friend to the show. I'll make sure I ain't too loud here. You're a friend to the show, so I get excited when you're here because we get to talk some real talk, But first and foremost, I love to ask, how are you? Let's start there. How are you? How's your health? All that good old stuff, yeah.
Thanks for that question. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty energized. Obviously, for someone who leads a voting rights organization, Sunday around 1:45 p.m. kind of changed our lives.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Let's start since we there. Let's start there. How was it to hear the news when because people were just kind of speculating like it could happen. Biden kind of stepped out because that was the issue also. Right. A lot of the Democrats felt, supporters of the Democrats felt that, you kind of push the president already out. Like he didn't say he wanted to step out. So that became an issue. Right. But then after that kind of subsided, then it was like, people scratching their head like there's a possibility that, we potentially may have someone in the running to be a president who may just be a woman. Right. And so we had Hillary Clinton kind of sitting there, but, people arguing she wasn't likable. Right. Seems like the world likes this one. Right. So let's start there. Right. With all of that, I'm going to throw that in your plate. Let's talk a little bit about it.
I don't know if we can say the world likes her, right? Because, right.
All right.
I'll say because at the end of the day, she's a black woman. She's a multiracial woman. Right. And this is going to be a challenge for her in all ways.
Yeah. So let's start with, do you believe she actually has a chance?
I absolutely believe she has a chance.
Okay.
People ask that question all the time. Who's electable?
Right.
Whoever you vote for is electable. Whoever gets the most votes, even with the Electoral College, in mind. Whoever gets the most votes is going to win.
Yeah. It seems pretty. This is a unique time. It's a lot going on from the potential or the. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. The assassination attempt, right? That happened. Joe Biden stepping down. That happened. Kamala Harris raising this, crazy amount of money in a few hours, from different, organization and groups. It's a curious time, and I can't put my finger on the energy, but it's a little scary. It's a little scary. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah.
The energy is a little scary.
Yeah.
And it was needed.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll say for me personally, I believe President Joe Biden was one of the top 1, 2, 3 presidents in my lifetime. And others' lifetimes, I'm sure, as well. Right. So shout out to him and the last almost 4 years now of his presidency. He had a record to stand on to reelect Joe Biden, and now Kamala Harris, she has that same record to stand on because she was with him side by side. So shout out to him. But I'll say that the energy is different. Yeah. I love seeing the energy that people, especially on social media, who keep popping up with. Black women for Kamala Harris, white women for Kamala Harris, black gay men for Kamala Harris. I mean, it's like everybody, and they all want to get together and break Zoom, and raise a lot of money. And I love to see that energy. And I'll say as a, organization, our primary purpose is doing voter registration. Yeah. We were suffering these last 6-7 months. We've been suffering trying to get Pennsylvanians registered to vote. And Sunday changed. Yeah. It not only changed the electorate and how they feel on the ground, in conversation with us, but it changed my staff. I know we have a staff of 55 people, and our staff comes from the electorate. So, they're a prime example of how the electorate is feeling. And I know that it has energized our staff. We have registered 50% more people this week than we did last week.
Wow.
And we still have today's numbers to come in and tomorrow's numbers to come in.
Interesting. It's a thing to, I want to phrase this right? And so votes matter, right? And that's something that you've been pushing, right? Votes matter. Why? Because we are in this kind of new conversation on the show where we're talking civics, right? And so why does votes matter? Why do votes matter? And people to perform their civics duty. Why is that important?
I'm so glad that you have a platform here to talk about civic education and engagement, because it is lacking in our school systems. It's been taken out of a lot of curriculums. So I'm so glad that you're doing this here. This is a public service that is needed.
Thank you.
It is so needed in this moment, the civic engagement, to talk about why it is that it's important to cast a ballot. We can take this old argument that, still works for me. We can talk about our ancestors all day, because I work to honor them.
Yes, you do.
Right?
I give a round of applause.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You do that faithfully.
Yeah. So, that's a thing. So honoring our ancestors and knowing the challenges that we have had in this country for citizenship, and now also the right, the freedom to vote. So what's important right now? Why should people be voting right now? All the things that we care about, all the freedoms we care about are all at stake. Every year we say this is the most important election of your life.
I was going to go there, yeah.
Here it is. Yeah. This is the most important election of your life. Yeah. My name is Kadida. I love to see a black woman. I love that. Thank you for that. My name is Kadida. I'd love to see a black woman named Ketanji be Supreme Court Justice. That's why you need to vote, right? Because the next president of the United States is going to be able to appoint 2 more, probably, Supreme Court justices. I love to see a black woman named Kamala, potential to run, potential to be president of the United States. Things I never thought would happen in my life. But when we talk specifically about why we should be voting, it's for what's at stake. You care about autonomy of your body and abortion rights, you need to vote. You care about who's going to sit on that Supreme Court for a lifetime, you need to vote. You care about immigrant rights, you need to vote. You talk about LGBTQ rights, you need to vote. All the things we care about, we need to vote. And it's not just the top of the ticket, so let's not get that confused. It's not just the presidency. Let's start at the bottom of the ballot and work our way up.
Please start there. Please start talking about that. Please.
Yeah. So this election year is not just the president of the United States. I mean, that gets all the, sucks all the air out of the room. Yeah. Your state reps, your state senators. Right. I mean, there's 2 special elections happening here in Philadelphia on September 17th. And I bet you most people don't even know that, right? So 2 special elections happening here because you had 2 state reps resign. So special elections happening in September. Reps matter. State senators matter. You want to get your potholes filled. You want to get a stoplight. You want to get your passport expedited. That's where you go. Yeah. You're going to see these folks. They're in your neighborhood. They're engaging you the most. So it's so important that you are electing these folks. And then we have the row offices. We have our treasurer. Wow. We have auditor general, attorney general. You care about policing reform. You care about cash bail. You care about all these things. You need to vote for these positions. You care about how your tax dollars are being spent. Are they going the wrong ways? Are they going to the wrong people? Then you need to care about your auditor general. You need to care about the treasurer. Wow. These are all these positions that we minimize because the president gets all the air in the room, but they're so important. U.S. Senate. It's at U.S. Senate this year, so Bob Casey up for re-election. Wow. And it is our U.S. senators who vote for every single federal judge that comes across their desk, right? So even a senator in Montana is going to vote about a judge that would sit on a federal bench here in Philadelphia. Wow. So the U.S. Senate, very important. Congress. We've got the Congress and all of our U.S. representatives up for election this year. All of these things matter. Jeez.
I don't even think people knew half of that. I don't think people knew half of that. So because of that, right, what do you think we need to do as a community, as a city, as a state, as a nation to teach that, to give that information? Because I don't think a lot of people know that those positions even exists, right, let alone that's up for kind of like election at this point. What do you think we should do?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's by design, right? Because an ignorant electorate, they can't put folks in office or take folks out of office. So I think we need to work on bringing civic education back into schools. There's great organizations that are doing this work on the ground, and yeah, we're relying on grassroots orgs and others to do this work. We need to add this back into the curriculum of our public schools. This is really the problem that we're having right now is that the electorate is just, they've been unengaged, and now they are not receiving the information they need to get out here and do what they need to do. I'll say this, Pennsylvania, we rank in the bottom 30 percentile of all states in the country as it relates to our ease of getting registered to vote and casting a ballot. Here we are, birthplace of American democracy. Yeah. We're a few blocks away.
Right, yeah, that's right.
A few blocks away.
Liberty.
And we're in between Mississippi and Arkansas. That's where Pennsylvania falls, at ease of being registered to vote and actually casting the ballot.
So do you think that's, I guess, because our platform is solutions based, right? So it's always, for me, I'm trying to understand the why. I always ask that question, why? Why do you think that is? Like, is it people do not have the information? Is it privy to that information? Do you think it's, potentially by design, of course, right? But what do you think that is? Because it can't be just by design if we're low, but you have somebody like DC is high, so to speak, right? So what do you think it is with Philadelphia specifically?
I think it is just that we have to do more talking about this. I think we're trying to be polite in some ways, and we don't want to talk about religion, and we don't want to talk about politics, and then it gets taken off of the table, and we need to be discussing that. There's nothing more important in this moment, and misinformation and disinformation runs rampant. So if you're not getting this civic education in schools, what are you hearing in a 15-second reel? On Instagram, what are you catching, right? What are you catching on TikTok for the 20 seconds that you're tuned in? And so if you catch the misinformation and disinformation, then you run with it, because that's where you're getting your news, and that's how you're understanding what's happening in the world. And this is also by design, and this is what suppresses votes, and this is what disenfranchises people, because they're getting not the real. By watching reels.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead. I could talk to her all day. She hot. Yeah. She cooking. Yeah.
You actually answered the question about if people want to change their ticket, and I guess you could tell people how that goes from Democrat to Republican, but pulling the Republican ballot or pulling that lever, it's now is it like a domino effect now? It's not just presidential. You have all that stuff that comes underneath of it, of, like you said, the certain judges that are in certain positions and staying on in that ticket. So can you tell us about, like, people who are saying, okay, I don't like Kamala, but I am a Democrat, and I basically lean towards more of the Republican policies, and so they're going to pull the lever on the Republican side. Tell us about how that is contradicting, and if that can happen when you're changing your ticket.
Yeah, so Pennsylvania, we're a closed primary state, right? And so that means that you must choose a major political party, Democrats or Republicans, in order to cast your ballot in our primary elections. Presidential election years, those are in April. Every other year, that's in May. Now, in Pennsylvania, just because you choose to register as a certain political party doesn't mean you have to cast your ballot that way. Right. Just in the last few years, we have taken straight ticket voting off of the ballot. So you can't just hit one button and vote for all Dems, or hit one button and vote for all Republicans. You must go down the list and select for each one.
Right.
And I'll say, Philadelphia, we're predominantly black folks here. We're not a monolith, right? So we're not all believing the same things. Right. Some of us have some conservative values as it relates to other things. Some of us are very liberal as it relates to others. And so we can't pigeonhole people and assuming that they're going to vote one way just because historically that's how it has happened. And I'll tell you that this information, again, runs rampant because, as we're registering young folks, 65% of those we register to vote are under the age of 35. And I'll tell you that as we come across them on the ground and outside bodegas or at a basketball courts, and they say to us, well, I'm going to vote this way. They volunteer this to us. I'm going to vote this way because we got this pandemic check or we got this COVID check from Donald Trump, right? And we have to dispel the misinformation that exists because he signed his name on that check, but he didn't work legislatively to make sure people got that check. So you have to recognize who it was that is doing the thing. And we get so upset, we get mad at presidents about, potholes, or we get mad at the mayor about things that have nothing to do with the mayor's position. So we have to really recognize who it is that we need to hold accountable, because it's not always the people we think it is.
I like that. I like that. And as you say that, and we can bear some responsibility as it relates to that. But one can argue that, those in leadership positions can bear a lot of that accountability for, educating the citizens to understand why you're in the position that you're in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a role of state reps and state senators. That's why their offices are in your neighborhood, right, so that you can go in there and engage them at any moment. I mean, voting is just the first stop. Now, the next stop is holding your elected officials accountable to all the promises they make you. So if you don't do that, then you're waiting on 2 years or 4 years to put them in office again or take them out of office. So it's up to us as the electorate to not just think that we stop at voting. It goes beyond just casting the ballot.
One thing that I appreciate from you is that you have always pushed for people to exercise their civic duty, right? You push for that across the board, not necessarily one side or the other, right? And I wanted to put that in context because of the question that I'm about to ask you, right? What is your position on people who feel that they have a need to push voters a certain type of way just specifically because of who's running, right? If I'm being transparent, what I'm starting to see is this hyper push for Kamala Harris, right? There used to be a conversation right before that, Democrats and people saying, you just need to vote, register to vote so you can vote, exercise your civic duty. This is what you're supposed to do. 2, you need to vote for Kamala Harris because, right? What is your thoughts on that? Is there an argument to be had to say, hey, it's not your responsibility to tell people who to vote for, but just that they should because of X, Y, and Z? What's your thoughts on that?
Right. So, new PA Project Education Fund, IRS status, because I want the IRS off my back, right? It's a C3 IRS status organization, nonpartisan organization, which means the work that we do as New PA Project Education Fund is nonpartisan, meaning we are not endorsing any particular candidate or any particular party.
That's right.
We do just want you to get registered to vote. There are 2.1 million Pennsylvanians who are eligible to vote but currently not registered or have not voted in so long.
Wait, say that number again.
2.1 million. Eligible to vote and not registered, or they haven't voted in so long, they're at risk of being dropped off the voter rolls, meaning they haven't voted in 5, 6, 7 years.
Hold on, that can happen? Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they will drop you off the voter rolls if you haven't voted in a certain amount of time. So for us, it's super important to make sure people know that they have the freedom to vote right now still, and they should exercise that. And no, we don't push any political party or candidates on folks when we're doing registration. We just want them to get registered because there are so many folks. And that kind of turns people off. And I think that's the beauty of our organization, is that we're not a political party saying, let's get you registered to vote. It's because I want you to give me something, right? We're knocking on your door. We are seeing you outside, Target or wherever the dollar store. We're outside where you are because we want you to be engaged. And I'll tell you, so many people that we have to have long conversations with and say, all right, let's talk a minute, because you're not registered to vote. You're 30 years old. You haven't registered to vote. What's keeping you out of the electorate? I just don't believe in these elected officials. I don't believe the system works for me. I believe that whoever they want to win is going to win. And we have to talk about the fact that Pennsylvania was won by Joe Biden by 80,000 votes, just 4 years ago. That's 5 votes a precinct. 5 votes a precinct.
That's not a lot.
When people believe my vote doesn't matter, it doesn't count. 5 people changing their vote a different way in each precinct would have had a completely different result in that 2020 election. So we just want people to get registered to vote. And what we say to them when they're on the fence, we'll say, let's just get you registered today. You don't have to vote, but let's get you registered. It's a form of ID.
I love it.
You get your voter registration card. It's a form of ID. You will have the ability that if you wake up on November 5th and you change your mind, then you have the ability to do so. But if you don't have the ability to do so and you wake up on November 5th, you won't be able to vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, or however you identify, I want you to understand, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. And what she just said right there, you may be able to register thousands of people to vote just simply by saying it just like that. I know you have a question. I'm sorry. I just got one more question before before, because I want to stay on this while I remember. Can you just give or shed some light on returning citizens and them being able to vote? Because there is misinformation, disinformation based around that. Can you elaborate and talk a little bit about that?
I love this. During our new hire process, we have 55 people on our team. We need another 25 to be successful, so we're still hiring. Orientation for us, we ask the question of our new hires, when do you feel most powerful? When I give my answer on those new hire orientation Zooms, I say it's the moment I register somebody who was formerly incarcerated, who thought that they didn't have the right to vote, and I'm able to speak to them and say, absolutely, yes, you do. Yes.
Yes.
And I'll give you the perfect example of this. 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Erie, and I registered a young man, not so young, around my age, to get registered to vote. We knocked on his door in Erie, and I'll tell you, most people wouldn't have knocked on his door because he had 2 barking dogs. He had a gate set up outside that didn't look like it was super secure, but I'm known to do little wild things. So I did knock on his door, and he came out, and he said, I can't get registered to vote. And I knew exactly what he meant when he said, I can't get registered to vote. And I said, what do you mean? He said, he's like, I'm a felon. And I was like, well, I'm formerly incarcerated. The moment your feet hit the street, you're eligible to vote. And I'm out here talking to you right now outside of your house, which means you are eligible to vote right now.
Wow.
So let's get you registered. And this man is Latino, so we had to get through with some of the dialogue, and we finally get this man registered to vote, and he walks back into his house. And he's walking back in his house, and he says, hallelujah.
Wow.
Hallelujah. And we walk down the street to get to the next door, and the man is still in his house saying, hallelujah. Hallelujah. And I get chills every time I tell this, because this is so real. I mean, the amount of folks that we have who are formerly incarcerated, who have been lied to, or maybe they got out 15, 20 years ago, when in Pennsylvania you could not be registered to vote. You had to wait 5 years. Yeah. But that's no longer. So the moment your feet hit the street, you are eligible to vote. If you're currently incarcerated, waiting on sentencing or conviction, you are also still eligible to vote.
Oh, wow.
If you are in jail for a misdemeanor, you are eligible to vote.
What?
Yes. So so many people have no idea about this because they've been misled and they believe they don't have the freedom to vote, and they do. And the only difference, or those who cannot, are those who were incarcerated based upon some kind of voting right fraud, then they have to wait 5 years. Or if you are in a halfway house and part of your sentencing has you in a halfway house, then technically you're still incarcerated, so you don't have the freedom to vote. But when you're living on your own and you're doing your own thing, I don't care if you paid your fines or fees or you talk to your PO, none of that matters. You have the right to vote. So go ahead and get registered to vote. And some people, we come across and they'll say no. And we want to say to them, what is the reason? No one's going to really offer up, I'm formerly incarcerated, right? People don't usually just offer that up. And so trying to, in a sly way, mention this. Well, just so you know, formerly incarcerated here in Pennsylvania, this is where we are progressive as a state, as the Commonwealth. The moment your feet hit the street, you're eligible to vote again.
Read the comments that someone's putting up.
Oh, I'm so stuck in. I'm sorry.
Just so that
I am gonna read those comments, and I just want to say this is why we do this show, right? We talk about solutions, we talk about giving information, we talk about our duty, right? We talk about our accountability, and this is something that we are very hard on, our accountability and giving platforms for those whose voices need to be amplified. Because what this sister just said, a lot of people did not know or have that information. So when we talk about misinformation or disinformation, a lot of people feel, especially I have, it's dear to my heart of my people who's in those bins right now, right? Who's locked up in those bins, who are not getting the adequate care, and who's being abused in those cells, and who are feeling like they're being forgotten. I ain't forget you. I didn't forget you. And so this is important to me. So, all right, I'm going to read some of this stuff. I'm sorry. Liberty Twitter. Oh, he was on here last time. He said, we don't need felons to vote. They're bad people. That's one. Felons vote for laws and people who are soft on crime. All right. Two, that harms society, their ability to vote. The last thing we need is for bad people to have anything to do with choosing representatives or policies. I want you to address all this. I'm just kind of giving, because he's been, posting all this. And this is something else that I do, right? I don't care what side you're on. We don't pick a side, right? We're here just to get the information. That's it. So if you're a Democrat, kudos to you. If you're a Republican, kudos to you. We're not going to wag our fingers and say, oh, you're bad for whatever side that you want. Last two comments that Liberty put, he said, it sounds to me like you care less about innocent and the victims than you do about criminals. And last but not least, he says, sounds like you don't care about the victims of those who are locked up in bins. What are your thoughts?
I've got a lot to say. Who's this? What's this person's
His name is Liberty Twitcher. He's on Twitch. He's a new kind of viewer, which I'm, okay, that's what's up. He's been very active, and hey.
Well, I'm loving the opportunity to have some conversation about this right now, and I hope he's able to continue to comment. So I'll say this, liberty. We want people to have liberty, and that is those who are formerly incarcerated as well. And I will tell you, we live in a society where mass incarceration is a thing.
That's right.
And there have been people incarcerated for, convicted and incarcerated for not doing any crimes, right? We have folks that are incarcerated for various reasons. Some of these are victimless crimes that people are incarcerated for. And that really should not matter. And I always talk about those closest to, the pain should be closest to the power. And if you are incarcerated, let's say for possession of weed or selling weed, I mean, there's people making millions of dollars off of selling weed right now.
That's right.
So why should someone such as that lose their franchise for a lifetime? And all these things happen because of history. I'm a history buff, so we go back to history. We go back to the Black Codes. Here we are, freedom, emancipation from chattel slavery. Black Codes put us back into jails for flagrancy. Just for standing on the corner would put you back in jail. And then once you get in jail, then you lose your franchise. This is all done on purpose, with purpose. So yes, there are some folks that are, incarcerated for various felonies, various reasons. We're not here to not say victims don't have the right to vote. But once you are released from incarceration, you have the freedom to vote again. You are a returning citizen is what these folks are called. And so I think that's really important to recognize. And I don't want to discount your feeling. There are folks out here that are victims to those who have committed felonies. And I think that it's not fair to say that those who are formerly incarcerated are going to vote a certain way. I think about the fact that we have someone running for the presidency of the United States who is also now a convicted felon.
That's heavy. One of the things I do want to give, I want to shed light on is Liberty did say, I'm against jailing people for victimless crimes. So, got you. And so one of the things that I wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead. I've just been talking.
No,
I'm sorry. This is, go ahead.
Well, I had a couple questions, but one question I was going to say, absentee voters, for those that are like going away to college and they still want to vote, but how do they go about, I guess, registering or getting a mail-in ballot or whatever the case is?
I love that question. So yes, I think about young folks who need to be registered to vote, who are already registered to vote, who need to cast their ballot. I think about my fellow Temple Owls, right, on campus.
TU.
There we go. TU.
Yes.
I think about my fellow Temple Owls who are on campus, and maybe they actually live in New Jersey when they're not in school. Maybe they live in Delaware or New York. Well, maybe because they live a good amount of their time of the year in Philadelphia, we should get them re-registered to vote and registered to vote here in Philadelphia, because it's the state representatives that are deciding what their tuition cost here in Pennsylvania, not in New Jersey. Right? It is the state's representatives here, or the mayor or council, who determine how safe they are on campus. Right? So maybe you need to get re-registered to vote here in Pennsylvania for those students. Well, let's talk about maybe someone who goes to Temple who is from Erie. Right? Well, where are you going to be on November 5th? November 5th, most likely you're going to be in class. It's a Tuesday. So you're not going home to Erie on that Tuesday. So let's get you a vote by mail ballot so that you can vote by mail. And if you don't want to do that, then let's get you registered to vote here in Philadelphia instead of in Erie, because you live here now. Right. So if you want to get a vote by mail ballot, I just encourage you to go to the Department of State website It's vote.pa. And go ahead and request a mail-in ballot. You can go to our website, New PA Project, newpaproject.org, and also there's a spot there to get you to go to the Department of State to get you a vote by mail ballot. So yeah, I think that's important, and that's the question we ask of young folks when we're doing voter registration on move-in day, which is coming up soon on these campuses. Where are you going to be on November 5th? Let's jog your memory here, right? You have Tuesday classes. You're not going back home, to Pittsburgh. You're not going back home to Lackawanna, County. You're going to be right here. So let's get you registered to vote here, or let's get you a vote by mail ballot, which I will say is still safe and secure and a great way to vote.
Newpaproject.org.
Newpaproject.org.
Okay, I just wanted to put this up so people, as we're talking, they kind of know. Newpaproject.org. Okay, great. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry. You had another question?
Oh,
so I do have another question for you. What you do, the courts, right? Why do the understanding of courts, right? How does that play with voting? A lot of people didn't quite understand how necessary it was for someone like Trump to place people in like the Supreme Court. I want you just to talk a little bit about that, to enlighten folks about the importance it is to understand judges and them being as it relates to the courts. Yeah.
All right, let's go back to 10th grade for a moment here. We learned about federalism. So there are state courts and there's federal courts. So our federal courts, they're important when you think about the U.S. Constitution and protecting our rights via the U.S. Constitution, super important. And we think about the lawsuits and the cases that have just come out of the United States Supreme Court in the last 3-4 years. We talk about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And the Dobbs decision that has made it very difficult for women to have access to abortion now. And that decisions have gone down to the states and down to the state courts, which make the state courts now important, because if the federal courts have punted cases down to the states, then it's important that you vote for your state judges. So let's get into state judges for a second. Pennsylvania, one of only 7 states in the entire country, we vote for all of our judges in elected, in partisan elections. This is very rare. We're only one of 7 states. Wow. So when you vote for a state judge here in Pennsylvania, municipal judges, magisterial judges, common pleas, superior, commonwealth, Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, these are all in partisan elections. You're going to see an R or a D behind this judge's name. And now we also say that justice should be blind, and it shouldn't really matter what your political party is. And in Pennsylvania, you're going to know what their party is the first time you elect them into that judgeship. And so this is super important for people to recognize, is that you have the power to put a judge on the bench or take a judge off of a bench. Let's go Meek Mill's judge.
Yeah, there we go. I was going, go ahead. Yep.
Right? So much pressure was put onto her to not run again that she decided not to be retained. She decided to drop out, to not seek retention. Because there were people that were going to run a campaign to, possibly remove her from the bench by not voting to keep her there for another 10 years. Wow. Right? So that is the power that you have as individual voters. And that's not just you voting, but that's just the thought of you about to go vote, what was going to happen. So imagine, Pennsylvania, you have the right to decide who's going to cast justice on you on your best or worst day in your life. Right? And so it's so important that we vote for these judges, because they're making decisions about our lives and our freedom.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just got a master class in the importance of voting, especially as it relates to courts. I mean, this sister has been dropping bombs. I mean, you gave a civics class in like this full conversation. And this is the reason why I like to bring you on, because we like the professionals to come on. I'll shout out people all day. I shout at people all day. I point fingers all day. I'm really hard on our leadership, because I believe that someone needs to hold them accountable that has a platform that's pretty loud, right? That's not, we're not retained by anyone. We're not sponsored by anyone, so to speak, right? We don't have anyone who invested in us because of interests, right? We say what we want to say and we do what we want to do, right? And I always say this: I don't care who you are. If you're in a leadership position, I'm for whomever, Republican, Democrat, Independent, who I see in them streets that's doing great for the people. Period. It's that simple. It's that simple. And so, you giving context to the importance of just voting, period. It gives, or it sheds new light on, well, I just need to get registered just because I can make a difference. I can make a change. What do you say, with that said, and that in context, what do you say to the person who, which you kind of already answered it, but this is a straight question to you. What do you say to people who may say to you, a young person, why should I register to vote? Because my vote don't count or my vote don't matter. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, we have to remind people that your vote does matter. And if it didn't matter, people wouldn't work so hard to try to take your right to vote away. Right? I mean, the voting age changed to 18 from 21 based upon the fact that during the Vietnam War, we were sending kids over to a foreign land to die in a war. Right. And they didn't even have the ability to vote to decide whether or not they'd be going over there to die in a foreign land because they weren't 21 years old at the time. So it was the constitutional amendment that changed the voting age to 18. You have to vote because in the end of the day, some of these things are going to come back to what you care about. That's right. And I said earlier, precincts, 5 votes in each precinct determined who was the president of the United States. And you know, America waited on Pennsylvania in 2020 and what we were going to do here in Pennsylvania. So your vote does count. And I'll say this, you might see elected officials on your block. And why do you see elected officials on your block? Because your block is probably registered to vote and your block is voting. You don't see elected officials on your block? It's because your block is not registered to vote and your block is not voting. This is just what it is. Yeah. When you call an elected official's office to ask for help, the first thing they're going to do is make sure that you're a constituent of theirs, right? And then they're going to find out if you're a voter or not. I'm going to help people who are going to put me in office or could possibly take me out of office. And again, voting is just the first step. That's just the first thing you do. Cast that ballot. The next thing you do is hold these elected officials accountable to the promises that they make us so that we elect them.
So I like when you said that, voting for things that you care about. And with so many people saying, like, I've been seeing people saying that I don't like either candidate, so I'm not going to vote for either one. Can you, and I'm sure you're familiar with Project 2025. Can you share your thoughts on that? And what are the repercussions if people decide they're not going to vote? Because I'm hearing that, it's going to be between Donald Trump and the couch. So what are your thoughts on Project 2025 and the repercussions?
Not voting is allowing someone else to have the power to vote for you, right? Not voting is a vote. Not voting is a vote. You've given somebody else the power to make decisions in your life. So I will say this around Project 2025. We should be very concerned about that. That is their agenda, conservative agenda for what the next 4 years could look like in this country. The elimination of the Department of Education. How does that work? The elimination of government jobs that put black folks into the middle class. Elimination of so many of the departments that we rely on as a nation to run smoothly. It is just disruption of democracy at its heart. Project 2025 is dangerous for so many reasons, and I encourage people to go out and simply Google this. You can Google it. You can go to the website and find out what they mean. It is all there in black and white. And I'm going to shout out to Raji P. Henson in this moment because if it wasn't for her and her shout out during the BET Awards, I don't know if we'd really be talking about Project 2025 in the way that we have, using her platform that she had in that moment to bring light to how destructive Project 2025 could be. That's the agenda. That's the conservative agenda. And that would disrupt so many laws, particularly those in Philadelphia.
Wow.
My sister. Go ahead.
No, she answered my question. Okay. I'm glad that Sizzle asked that question. That was actually what I had to ask.
I'm gonna put because I put your links up here. Let me make sure I just copied and pasted all these links because I want people to know how they can find you. So I'm gonna just read some stuff off. You let me know if it's accurate or not. Your website, newpaproject.org. Let me see. And we got newpaprojecteducationfund.org.
Yes, in the shortened version, you can just do nppef.org for that one, too.
Got you. Twitter, New Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Great. Facebook, New Pennsylvania Project.
Yes.
I don't see the Instagram. Instagram wasn't on
New
here.
Pennsylvania as well.
Okay, great. Because I want people to be able to access this information and find you and get all of this great information. Look, I can have you on here all day because I think the problem that we have, I'm going to put this back up, newpaproject.org. I think the problem that we're having as a people is the constant, we tend to get our news and information from IG and TikTok and all the social media platforms, right? Is that a good thing, a bad thing? I mean, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, right? Because I have seen some dynamic platforms and organizations give great news to try to combat fake news using Instagram and TikTok, right? We do it, we try our best to stay away, Sizzle want to make sure that, the research is there and we get that information out, right? But I think there is an argument to be said. People are moving away from the old ways of thinking and the old ways of retaining and the old ways of getting their information, right? So there is an argument to be said that, social media platforms, are important for a new generation because that's where they check in. That's where they plug in. And if you're not meeting them where they plug in, then the people who are meeting them where they plug in might not be the good people that they need to hear from. Mm-hmm. So you gotta plug in. You have to plug in. So if you have legacy organizations that are against these new ways of marketing and promotion and engaging, what do you say to them if they feel burnt or hurt or upset because they feel that their platform isn't where people are going? And I say that because you have this idea that, that social media isn't prestige enough. You need to come to our hard platform, so to speak, legacy platforms. What's your thoughts on, engaging people where they are? I got another question because I want you to sit on that. And I say that just in context because we say that We Talk Weekly, our platform is easy to understand, right? I think the problem and what I have heard with people who check into our platform, they feel that a lot of these legacy organizations, they are being talked at, not talked to, right? The conversation is over their heads, right? These are academics on these platforms that's talking to other academics. And it's kind of like, how are you telling me I'm supposed to do something? I don't even know what you're talking about. I feel like you just trying to show how smart you are, right? And so we try to make sure that, we engage the people that's trying to truly understand in an easy manner. So all that in context, what's your thought on, just the academic and these prestigious organizations that feel like certain means of getting the information out shouldn't be done? It should be, quote unquote, the old way. This is the standard way. And this is how journalism is supposed to be. So this is how you should take it.
Temple grad journalist.
I got another thing. Yeah.
That's my degree in broadcast journalism. And so I'll say this. You have to evolve or get left behind. And this is where folks are getting their news now. And that's why we are on all of those social media platforms, because we need to make sure that we're countering the disinformation or misinformation people may get by only getting their news that way.
Right.
Talk about speaking to the choir. I mean, those who watch MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, they're already in their bubble, right?
Yeah.
So they're speaking to each other. This is part of the success of Sarah Palin, if we remember her. So,
right? You're a maverick.
Right?
I'm a maverick. Yeah, I
it's
remember
that,
her.
she was able to speak to folks on a level in which they understood.
That's right.
And that's appreciated.
Yeah.
And we can't over-talk or out-talk or, are we trying to show how smart we are, or are we trying to get this thing right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're speaking to folks in a level in which they're going to understand and that's going to touch their heart. Because that's what's going to get them to come out and cast a ballot. But yeah, we have to be on all these platforms because this is where people are now.
I love it. Wow. Ladies
one
and
more question.
Go ahead.
So PA, battleground state, what is your organization doing to ensure that more people are getting out to the polls?
So right now we're doing until that 2-week deadline. So October 21st is the last day to get registered to vote, October 21st. So our organization will be on the ground doing voter registration up until the last moment. Then we will flip a switch, and then beginning on the 22nd, we will start knocking on the doors of the folks we registered to vote to get them to come out. And anecdotally, we had a really good experience in the city of Chester. 2 years ago, we had registered somebody to vote, and we actually knocked on their door right ahead of the election, and they had the sticker that we gave them on the day we registered them to vote on their front door. And this is a permanent sticker now. This is a permanent sticker on their front door. And so we knew that this was impactful for us. So not only did we register them to vote, then we knocked on their front door, and then we made sure they got out and cast a ballot. So we're going to mobilize people to the polls. We're going to do it by knocking on the doors. We're going to do it digitally as well. We'll do some radio ads. We'll do things on social media. We'll host events. We'll make it exciting, make it a party. We'll have some DJs at the polls. All the things that are going to get younger folks particularly to show out to the polls.
Yeah, let us know. We'll come out. Anything you're doing like that that's trying to, get people out there, and you need a platform, we'll come out. We'll do something live. We got you. We're going to support you on it,
I'm going to hold you to that one.
No, for sure. We're going to do that. We want to definitely make it happen. You're a friend to the show. I always say that. Once you come on the show, you're a friend to the show, and you're always welcome to come back. I actually want you to kind of commit to coming back a few times prior to we start to vote, because I think people need to hear and start to engage and start to hear more about you, how they can contact you and how they can register. I think I want that to be like our civic duty to kind of not necessarily promote you, but to make sure people understand where they need to go, the information that's out there. And I think you're vital to what's needed today. Is that all right?
I commit to coming back because Philadelphia is important. I commit to coming back. Philadelphia is super important, and turnout has not been all that great in Philadelphia the last few years. It can be much better, and we need to have everyone that is eligible to vote to come out and vote this year. And I'll say this as well, for those listeners out there, we opened up our brand new Philadelphia office. We're at 29th and Cecil B. Moore. Yeah, right there, Brewery Town, Strawberry Mansion, right there on the border.
That's right.
And for young folks that are looking for some work, we start at $20 an hour.
Nice.
Right? If you wanna do what we're doing, which is talk to our communities, hang out in your own community, get people registered to vote, we start at $20 an hour. We also have full-time positions that get you 100% of your health care paid for and all those things too.
What?
Awesome.
So please stop by. The office will be open on a daily basis starting on Monday.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting you some jobs. We're trying to get you some jobs out there. That's fantastic. So newpaproject.org, find out more. Is that information hype?
Yes, and you can find out more about all the jobs that we have available.
Perfect. newpaproject.org. This is our civic duty. We're going to continue to talk about this, continue to amplify those voices that need to be heard, and people need to hear this information. And so I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for committing to come back so we can talk to these people and talk to my folks that they got locked up in those pens. We need you. We hear you. We understand. We know. We got you. We want you to get the information. And so thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything before we let you leave that you would like to say to the people? Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is please talk to the young people in your life, because here in Philadelphia, only 15% of high school seniors who are eligible to vote are registered to vote. So you got a classroom of 100, only 15 of those students who are eligible to vote are registered. And that number, decreases in other places. The city of Chester, that's 6%. So you get a classroom of 100, only 6 of those students are registered to vote. So please don't assume that everybody in your life is registered to vote. Talk to the young folks in your life, because only 1 in 4 statewide number is actually registered to vote. And don't assume the older folks in your life are registered to vote as well. As an organization, we have registered 2 100-year-old women to vote.
I was going to tell you. Yes, yep, that's right.
Yes.
We have registered 2 100-year-old women to vote. And one said, when asked why she had never registered to vote before, she said because no one had ever asked her.
I remember, I remember that story. And ladies and gentlemen, we actually have that on on camera, she told that story. So find her interview. It's on We Talk Weekly, and you can hear the story of her and how it touched you. I remember that, and that was I never forgot that story. Never forgot that story. And you heard it first here on We Talk Weekly, you know. And so thanks again for coming on the show. So I don't want you guys to go nowhere. We have Rafa. I gotta apologize to the sister who been patiently waiting to come on, because we was waiting for her to come on also. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. This is We Talk Weeklies after the talk of WPP MLP Philadelphia 106.5 FM. We Talk Weeklies after the talk with your boy Charles Gregory and the beautiful
Lauren Sizzle.
And the beautiful
Classy Lady Sparkle.
and beautiful
Kadida Kenner.
and we'll be right back after this show. Holla.